Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Let us continue. Today's The Hindu analysis, 14th July 2021. Relevant articles, largely they relate to our mains examination. From the same articles, we will also take some inputs for prelims examination also. Okay, let us take review of all these articles on page number 6 and 7, editorial page and op-ed page. The first article, the upcoming crisis in Indian federalism. Okay, so the context of this particular article, the unique challenge that is posed before Indian polity in 2026. Okay, there is going to be the delimitation and there is surely going to be the changes in the number of seats in Lok Sabha after the limit that is there beyond 2026. Okay, so what are the constitutional provisions? The amendments earlier, that 42nd and 84th amendment, all these things here we are going to discuss, and the issues related to the conflict between democracy and federalism. These two important aspects of Indian constitution, how they are in conflict with each other on this particular issue. So, polity paper, GS2 paper of your syllabus. Then an unproductive idea on page number 6, editorial. This article is having the context of recent policy changes that are done by UP government regarding population control measures. Okay, so the article is in first part talking about which measures of under this particular policy is undertaken. Along with that, the analysis is done here that how it is not productive. Okay, these measures are not productive and the other methods that are required to be undertaken. Okay, so GS1 paper, society, there the population, demography, population, all the aspects are related to in GS1 paper, society part. Along with that, social justice and governance part, policy measures, GS2 paper. Then disable unconstitutional sections on page number 7, there is one article. The context of the article is same. Recently, how the Supreme Court has, let's say, said that despite of, let's say, declaring the section 66A of IT Act as unconstitutional in Shreya Shingal case 2015, still FIRs being filed by police. So, regarding the different sections of IPC and different laws which are declared unconstitutional. So, they are enlisted in this particular article. So, that is important because the particular issue of section 66A, we discussed that in last week in one of the editorial, if you remember this. Okay, how it goes against the freedom of speech and expression, how it was declared unconstitutional by Supreme Court in Shreya Shingal case. So, that was discussed, but here the different sections which are declared unconstitutional in different cases and still the FIRs are being filed by invoking those sections. So, you should be aware about those sections. You can mention them in your answer whenever the question is relating to this issue. Okay. Then digital divide among teachers. There is one data fact, the Hindu analysis team is there which is analyzing different reports and giving some data in the form of charts, tables on page number 7, op-ed page on the bottom side. Whenever they are relevant to our examination, our syllabus, we should take input here. The particular data is relating to digital divide among the teachers. Okay, so in GS2 part, human resource development, we have this particular topic. Along with that, we should be also using such facts and data in essay paper. Okay, essay topics relating to education, or especially the online education, we are expecting such essay topic. Lastly, some COVID-19 related developments at national and international stage and practice prelims MCQs. Okay, so first article on page number 6, upcoming crisis in Indian federalism. See, such issues are discussed in very unique articles. These are not repeating articles, so you should be very careful in taking inputs for our examination. Okay, so yes, this is relevant to our polity part. Now, the context is changes in 2026 in composition of Lok Sabha. So, here we can say possible changes. possible changes. Why possible changes? We are saying that first of all you should be aware about the constitutional provisions. Okay, so we know that the Lok Sabha or elections to Lok Sabha are conducted through direct elections on the basis of universal adult franchisee, and the method used is first past the post, FPTP, first past the post. Okay, so this is the method used, direct elections, universal adult franchisee, that means those above 18 years of age are eligible to vote, let's say despite of any background they have, gender, sex, or we can say that the place of origin, race, religion, caste. So there is no discrimination. Okay, this is how the method is there. Now we have to understand the constitutional provisions regarding the delimitation. So two important amendments were done. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 during the emergency time period at that time. So this Constitutional Amendment Act, 42nd Amendment Act, which is also known as mini constitution because it brought many changes in the constitution. So particular provision in this amendment regarding delimitation, it froze the number of seats, in Lok Sabha up to 2001, and the population census that is to be used was 1971. Whenever there is, let's say, delimitation is to be done or the constituencies are to be decided for every general elections, then the population levels or population census of 1971 was to be used. This ban was or freezing of these seats was extended through 84th Constitutional Amendment Act 2001 by further 25 years. That is now up to 2026. At present, the constitution of Lok Sabha, total 552 seats are there. Okay, total maximum 552 seats are there. You should be aware about that maximum number of seats. Okay, now this maximum number is frozen through these constitutional amendment acts. Now after 2026, what Parliament may decide, that is different thing. Okay. Now why such freezing of number of seats was undertaken? The motive behind this was those progressive states in terms of, let's say, economy, as well as those states which were able to control the population in the states. Okay, so those states will be lagging in the national political discourse if the updated population census were undertaken. Why? Because some of the backward states, economically backward states, are also those states having the largest population. Okay, and those western and southern states, they are having less population but they are economically advanced. At the same time, they are contributing to the national economy more as compared to the economically backward states, but still populous state. Now if we go by the democratic principle, which is used through universal adult franchisee in Lok Sabha election, what will happen? More representation will go to high population states. However, those states having the less population, they will get less representation in Lok Sabha. So that means the overall Lok Sabha and the representation to that particular states will reduce, especially those progressive states like Kerala. If you are talking about the example, Kerala, Karnataka, these states, to some extent progressive in terms of population control, economic growth, they will have less representation if we go by democratic principle. Okay, so that's why such freezing of seats was undertaken, and therefore now after 2026, after 2026, if suppose the number of seats are increased on the basis of updated census, still the most populous states like UP, Bihar, West Bengal, they will get more seats. Now this is going to be the concern of some of the southern and western states. Okay. So this is how we have to understand that there is going to be the conflict between the principles of democracy and federalism, right. So yes, we can understand that federalism here, it is talking about the division of power between center and state, and that's why smaller states will be always concerned. Why? They will not have adequate representation in the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha wields the power at the national stage, and if those states having the high population gets more representation, what will happen? They will form the government. They will form the majority government in Lok Sabha, and therefore what will happen? The representation or the voice interests of these some of the states will not be represented by the government. Okay. So that means the federal aspects and democratic principles, they are in contradiction here. Now such kind of, let's say, contradiction is overcome in some of the western countries, like if we talk about the American Constitution. There are some provisions in the American Constitutions which tries to solve this conflict. First thing, that the center has less powers and control over state polity. That means there is some kind of strict federation. In the US Constitution itself. Okay, states are more powerful than the center. The central government is not having or not able to exercise the control over state in a similar manner that our central government exercises over the state governments. First thing, this is given in the Constitution itself. Second thing, you should be aware that each state is given equal representation in Senate. The upper house of US Congress, okay, 2 members or 2 seats from each state, be it larger state or smaller state. But this is not the case in India's Council of State or Rajya Sabha. Okay, so that again becomes a proportional aspect, proportional in terms of, we can say, the number of seats in state assembly. Okay, so from that we can understand there is more say to the smaller states in national legislature or union legislature, or we can say that Congress in terms of USA. The third important aspect is presidential elections. Though president is representing all people of United States, however, he is elected by the electorates from the state. Okay, so that means there is some kind of, let's say, indirect election. That means there is some kind of indirect election. People are electing the representatives in the state, and in turn those representatives are giving the, let's say, weightage to particular candidate at national stage. This is how the presidential elections are conducted. That means the person should be getting elected by having the state issues, or we can say that the vote is garnered from the state issues and not the national issues. This is the weightage that is given to the states in the presidential election also. So a similar kind of, let's say, changes can be brought in Indian Constitution or Indian polity also to provide the security to the smaller states. So from analysis we can say that decentralization and devolution of powers to the states does not always result into separatist tendencies. does not always result into separatist tendencies. We have seen that from Reorganization of States Act 1956, the reorganization was done on the basis of linguistic, let's say language basis, and still we are not having any kind of separatist tendencies. Many such smaller states were formed from the larger states, and still we are not seeing any kind of separatist tendencies. The concerns which were there in the minds of the leaders even immediately after independence. Okay, so from that we can understand that smaller states are not harmful. Rather, if we are having a appropriate kind of, let's say, basis to form the smaller states, that is not going to be the problem. Okay, so yes, as a way forward, the writer is saying that the states should be given more powers vis-a-vis center, especially in terms of, let's say, lists which are mentioned in 7th schedule. You know the tendency, since independence there is some kind of centralizing tendency. That means the subjects from the state list are transferred to the concurrent list and central list, not other way around. That is, devolution of the powers is not there with the states. Okay. Second aspect is regarding the changes in the boundaries of states. At present, this is the sole imperative, or we can say prerogative of parliament, and states do not have any kind of, let's say, voice in terms of changes in the boundary of the states. So here the powers of the states can be increased regarding the boundaries of the states. So to some extent it provides security to the states that their boundaries will not be changed. Okay, so along with that, further changes can be done in terms of federal aspects. Okay, so redistribution of resources, especially financial resources. So this is visible from GST Council. The more weightage should be given to the states, and especially regarding redistribution of financial resources, tax revenue, and states should be given more say in such kind of deciding redistribution of financial resources. Okay, so they will be empowered further. Okay, so in future, especially after 2026, what is going to be done? So that will be in news. This particular issue will be in news further again and again. So whenever we will take input further, whenever new kind of aspects appear in those articles. But till that time, the question, there is an inherent contradiction between principles of democracy and federalism when federal units are unequal in size, population and economics. This is the statement given in the article itself. Discuss with reference to Indian polity. So here you need to give the context of this 2026 deadline about the freezing of this number of seats, what will happen after that, the concerns of the smaller states in terms of size, population and advanced economies, how they will be addressed in future. Okay? Yes, any question?
Sir, in terms of population and the economy, we are unable to expect and we are unable to compare with any other of states. Sir, how we can able to judge that one?
We are unable to
compare with any other states among the India overall states. How we can able to judge in features? That two parameters.
Yes, population we are going to discuss in the next article itself. So there I will explain that. In terms of economy, yes, there is some kind of, let's say, unequal economic growth and development has been there since independence due to, let's say, the capability of the states for the resource mobilization. There is differential capacities, and to some extent there is some colonial legacy also. Okay, so some of the states were progressive in the British time period itself, okay, and some of the states remained backward, and later on after independence also the policy failures, okay, to some extent that resulted into unequal economic growth. So the solution should be always written regionally balanced economic growth. Regionally balanced economic growth to reduce the disparity among the states, growth and development. Always use this word as a way forward in your answer whenever we are talking about this issue. Regionally balanced economic growth. Fine. So yes, some of the backward states, like if you are talking about the eastern states, northern states, those states, the focus of the government should be on those states, or some of the districts, like the 100 districts identified in the particular scheme of the government, the backwards districts. If you know about this aspirational districts program, government scheme is there, aspirational districts. Right. So in different states, which particular districts are backward, those are being developed through mobilization, efficient and effective mobilization of resources at district level. Fine. Okay. Yes. Now moving on to next article, the context of this particular editorial is this recent changes brought by UP government in its population policy. Draft UP population bill 2021 is there, and the measures which are provided under this new population policy of UP, there is, let's say, approach of incentives approach. Now this is very old approach which was used by not only in India after independence, but by many other countries also, providing incentives for population control, or we can say that reducing the fertility rate, and we can say disincentives to those who are having the larger size of households. Now here, in terms of disincentives or penalties in this particular bill or the policy of the UP government, the penalties provided like denial of those who are having more than 2 children, denial of benefits under subsidies and welfare scheme, government jobs, local elections. So such kind of incentives and penalties are provided. Along with that, some of the incentives are also provided. Those having the 1 child or 2 child, they are promoted through, we can say, incentives like cash incentives, through various government schemes, cash transfers. Along with that, yes, tax rebates and, let's say, subsidies in the loans. Along with that, yes, government service, they are allowed to apply for the government service, right? So many such tangible and intangible benefits, we can write down like this: tangible and intangible benefits are provided for family planning, those who are opting for family planning, or 2-child policy or 1 child. Okay, so such incentives and the penalties, this is the approach used by UP government in this. Now on the surface level, this appears to be in line with this Cairo International Conference on Population and Development 1994. Remember the name, Cairo International Conference, Cairo, capital of Egypt. Okay, this conference happened on the population and development issue. So however, the spirit side we can say about this conference, it focused on policy measures of women empowerment, improving educational status, improving skill development, and we can say overall economic development, which will result into, let's say, more awareness about the reproductive rights of women, and automatically there will be improvement in socio-economic condition of the society, and people themselves will choose the we can say smaller family sizes or family planning. Okay, so this particular decision will be the independent choice of the people and not forced through coercion by the policy measures of the government. Are you getting this? So the people should be allowed themselves to take such decisions, and this will happen only when the people are having the economic prosperity and there is some kind of, let's say, empowerment, especially women empowerment. Women are to be, let's say, given the awareness about the reproductive rights they have, and then only the size of the family will reduce. Okay. So automatically the fertility rate will be it will go below the replacement levels. It will go below the replacement levels. Okay, at present UP is having the fertility rate of 2.7. The replacement rate of fertility is 2.1. Replacement rate means at this fertility rate the population will not increase or decrease. It will remain same. That's why it is called as replacement level. Okay, so yes, the only state having more than fertility rate of 2.7 is Bihar with 3.1. Okay, so these two important states, they are having a very high population growth even at present. So to bring down this fertility rate and overall population, these measures are there. However, the spirit side of this conference talks about this. Now, in the past also these incentives and disincentives approach was rejected by NHRC when there were many such decisions taken by states during 1990s. For example, Haryana government, Rajasthan government, they also brought similar kind of policies during 1990s, and they were, let's say, criticized by NHRC also at that time. Now, if we talk about the arguments against, then it is to some extent discriminatory to poor people. How? You need to understand that poor people do not have the skills, they do not have the educational levels, or we can say appropriate incomes or livelihood opportunities, and that's why they consider that manual labor is only source of income. Manual labor is the only source of income, and therefore more the people in the family, more the people, or we can say sources of income for the sustenance of family. This is the important argument, and to some extent this policy measures of penalty, disincentives goes against the welfare of the poor people. For example, denial of welfare schemes or even subsidies. Basically these subsidies and welfare schemes are for the poor households, and surely they will have more than 2 children in their households. Okay, so it goes against the welfare state concept here. Fine. So you should be aware about this argument also. What should be the way forward? Socio-economic empowerment. So you should be aware about the Malthusian theory here, because this article talks about or mentions about this particular population theory. Malthus was actually the population or demographic geographer, we can say that Malthus. He gave his population theory, one of the earliest population theory. You should be aware about the principles he gave in that population theory. According to Malthus, population grows in geometric progression. Population grows according to geometric progression, and food supply grows in arithmetic progression. That means food supply grows at smaller rate as compared to population growth, and therefore all the countries goes through sudden increase in population growth. However, there are some positive checks by nature itself to control the population, and there are some preventive checks that can be applied by people or the governments. Remember the name: positive checks, preventive checks. Okay, so positive checks by nature, that means national disasters, or we can say natural disaster, not natural disasters. For example, famine, floods, earthquakes, or we can say different kinds of natural disasters which will result into death of large scale population. Automatically the nature has some kind of balancing mechanism. Okay, so this is positive checks according to him. Preventive checks is regarding the medical science, progress in medical science, for example delaying the pregnancies, or we can say use of contraceptives, self control, so family planning. This is called as preventive checks. Okay, so that means according to Malthus, this was going to be the natural course. However, we can understand that now preventive checks have been more successful in the population control. Okay, so for that purpose we should be aware about that socio-economic development is need of socio-economic development or empowerment. Whenever we talk about socio-economic empowerment, first talk about the education, health and skill development. Okay, this is one part. The second part you should talk about is employment opportunities, infrastructure development and overall economic growth. So they are complementary to each other, and overall socio-economic development will happen through such manner. Okay, they are complementary to each other. You can write down this in your way forward. So what kind of question? Socio-economic empowerment is more effective than the coercion in cutting fertility rates. Analyze with reference to some states adopting incentive-disincentive approach for the population control. You can give the reference of UP government. So such kind of question we can expect in GS1 or GS2 also. GS1 or GS2. Now, yes, questions? Yes, tell me. Any question?
Sir, UP present having the highest poverty lines and unemployment state is there. UP is there. And that present situation they are implementing the disconnecting of some benefits from the government to the people, those are having the more than 2 people. It may affect the lifestyle of their day-to-day activities and their employment and their activities in the overall state.
Yes. This is
leads to poverty increasing and some illegal activities are going to be against the government.
Yes, that means yes, your analysis is correct here, that those who are poor people, those who are already poor people, and those who are having more than 2 children in the household. So surely those families are going to be not receiving the subsidies which are actually intended for them. For poverty elimination and poverty eradication schemes like food subsidy or other subsidies which are provided to them, if they are not provided to them, then how they will be empowered? Because the subsistence, basic subsistence is part of welfare state, it is responsibility of welfare state, and therefore the government cannot deny those basic, let's say, goods and services to them. Okay. It is further going to increase the poverty levels. Basically, poverty elimination, that means socio-economic empowerment. Bringing those poor people above poverty levels, empowering them, prospering them will automatically result into population control. Fine, this should be the approach. Now, disable unconstitutional sections. This particular article enlists different sections declared unconstitutional by Supreme Court in different cases. So you should be aware that these are being invoked by the police from time to time, but that should not happen. Okay, so context is section 66A of IT Act. Supreme Court in Shriya Singhal case 2015 declared this particular section, which criminalizes online posting of information, considered as grossly offensive. Okay, so maximum jail up to 3 years under this particular section was there, but this was declared unconstitutional because it is violative of article 19(1)(a), that is fundamental right under article 19(a)(1), freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression. Similar sections like section 303 of IPC in Mithu State versus State of Punjab case 1983. This particular section talks about, let's say, capital punishment for murder by a person serving life term in another case. So there is some kind of let's say severity of the punishment here, the capital punishment, that is death punishment for the murder by a person serving life term. So this was abolished, this was declared unconstitutional, section 303. Then section 377, Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India, very famous case, 2018. In this particular case, the Supreme Court read down this section 377 IPC, criminalizing unnatural sex as being unconstitutional. Okay, so here the Supreme Court has said that this is not going to be the criminal offence. This is not going to be the criminal offence under section 377. Section 497 of IPC, Joseph Shin versus Union of India 2018. Here the adultery provision under this section being manifestly arbitrary, discriminatory, violative of the dignity of women, and therefore declared unconstitutional. So adultery is now made a civil offence and not criminal offence in India after this particular judgment. Okay, section 497 of IPC. So try to remember 2 to 3 such particular sections of different laws declare unconstitutional, and they are still being invoked by the police, and even the lower judiciary is unaware about declaring such let's say particular section as unconstitutional by Supreme Court or higher judiciary. Okay, so recently we discussed one such article. There is need of awareness among the lower judiciary as well as police officials. There is need of training station house officers, SHOs regarding this, and ignorance of law cannot be excused regarding invoking such kind of let's say sections, and harassment, unnecessary harassment to the people. Fine. Now this particular data on page number 6, it is talking about the teachers facing digital hurdle. Okay, so in this some facts are mentioned, that inadequate training. Okay, there is one table given regarding the primary level, secondary level, upper primary, upper secondary or higher secondary. Okay, so here it is saying that only 15% of teachers were trained to teach using computer schools managed by the government. Okay, then along with that, the types of management listed in the table, 95% of the teachers in the country. So out of 95%, they are covered 15% in the government schools, they are trained to teach using computer. This share is more in private schools. Then pupil teacher ratio. This particular chart again shows pupil teacher ratio, this particular chart, and it is showing that state-wise pupil teacher ratio across educational levels. According to Educational Ministry, ideal pupil teacher ratio should be 30:1. That is, for 30 children, one teacher should be there. While it was within the range of most states, the ratio was more than 40:1 in higher secondary schools in Odisha, Jharkhand, and it was more than 50:1 for Bihar. This is the case. Okay. So yes, many such points are mentioned regarding digital divide, especially the training of teachers to use computers. So all these facts, some of the facts can be used in GS2 paper and essay paper. So you can extract these facts from this PDF and mention them in your notes. Okay, they should be used in your essay paper also, as well as mains examination. Now, COVID-19 related developments, Serum Institute of India is going to manufacture this Russian vaccine also, Sputnik V vaccine. At present, it is producing the Covishield vaccine. At present, it is producing Covishield. Along with that, it is also going to produce Sputnik V. Then, the weekly pace of vaccination has declined to nearly 60% of what it was seen in the week after 21st June. So you can see the graph recently suddenly spiked down like this. Weekly, or we can say that the average daily doses administered in millions. This has come down in this last 1 week or 2 weeks. Okay, so basically here the slackening has resulted in several states complaining of shortage and inability to cater the demand. So again the shortage of vaccine is created, so we need to ramp up the production capacities. We will see in future what is going to happen. Now what should be the answer to this question?
Sir, answer please both 1 and 2.
Yes, other students? Yes, we are talking about the Malthusian population theory. Just now we have understood what are the principles given by Malthusian theory, correct statements. Population grows in arithmetic progression, not arithmetic progression, rather population grows in geometric progression. Yes, in mathematics we learn about arithmetic and geometric, right? Geometric progression. What is geometric progression? Like this, the ratio between the adjacents are same, right? So ratio is 2 to, oh sorry, yes. So the ratio between these two is same, and in arithmetic progression the difference between like this, difference between two terms is same. Fine. So this is very simple. So in geometric progression it is increasing at faster rate as compared to we can say arithmetic progression. So food supply grows at the rate of arithmetic progression, which is slower rate as compared to geometric progression. Okay. So food supply increases at slower rate than the population. This is correct statement. This is incorrect statement. So answer should be 2 only, B. Okay. Have you understood this, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any question from these articles? Okay then. So this was for all today. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.